Hello, today we are talking about navigating needs. I am Mindy Amita Ashling. I am an ICF certified life coach, a licensed mediator, a fitness coach, an adventurer, an entrepreneur, and most of all, an epiphany hunter. Do you desire to live an authentic life, one that is true to you and who you are at your core? And this includes relationships that celebrate who you are and honor your unique needs. This includes work that honors your unique gifts. If that's something you desire, you're in good company. I've been life coaching since 2010, and these four things are the things that people most often come to me for. So the second thing here on this list is yearn to find and live your purpose, similar to the one before, but this is really focused on not necessarily work, though often it is. This could be motherhood, it could be volunteering, it could be stewardship for the land. But each one of us has a natural uprising of desire and purpose in this world, and finding that can bring a lot of joy and meaning to life. The third one, hunger for a thriving partnership or soulmate marriage. And when I talk about this, it's not just finding the right person, but cultivating the right skills within yourself to be able to give and receive love. And that comes down to needs, which we're going to talk about today. And finally, just a general wish for increased clarity, joy, and passion in your life. The good news is that the path to all of these things is the same. Number one, know your needs. And number two, take 100% responsibility for getting them met. I love this quote by Michelangelo and this concept of the sculpture already existing in the stone. And he said that all he had to do was chip away everything that wasn't David. And in the same way, I believe that this is how we become the most authentic version of ourselves. And it is by learning your needs and learning how to navigate your needs that you chisel yourself into the sculpture that you already are. Just take a moment and consider what comes to mind when you think of needs. For some people, this is a positive concept of knowing their needs and getting them met. And for some people, it has a lot of negative connotations. The word selfish is often used. Most people, or many people, I should say, feel that being needy somehow makes you unlovable or undesirable or too much. And it's good that we just sort of start this discussion being aware of what the current belief systems are in our minds, so that we know how that's sort of filtering and shading what we think as we review the material. I do think it's important to call this one out because it is such an untrue belief system out there in our culture. Is advocating for your needs selfish? No, it is not. Are you willing to disappoint another to be true to yourself? Yes, you have to be able to do this to meet your needs and to live an authentic life. This does not mean that you're not considering other people or that you're not being kind or that you're not being giving or compromising. Of course, it doesn't mean that. It means that you know yourself so well and you know where you can give and compromise and where that's just going to lead to resentment for you, which is ultimately not good for any of your relationships. Here are some of the positives of quote unquote selfishly meeting your needs. In your relationship with yourself, it looks like increased self-trust, increased self-esteem, more time spent on self-care because you know what you need to feel alive and thriving every day, increased joy, increased generosity, that old concept of if your bucket is full, then you will naturally overflow to others. And then this last one, which I feel is the most important bullet point, is when you know your needs and you know how to get them met, this allows you to fully show up as your full self in every area and every relationship of your life. In your relationship with others, it increases trust when you know your needs and know how to get them met, decreases your resentment for sure. supports the development of healthy boundaries, increases the experience of teamwork, support, and ultimately the experience of love, right? And then it increases accountability. I love this quote, when we deprioritize selflessness in order to be accommodating, we actually pose a threat to genuine connection rather than fueling it. This is one of those ideas that many of us get backwards. We sort of have this idea that if we are accommodating and we don't make waves, that that's going to bring us closer to the people around us. And it's actually the exact opposite. What do you say when someone responds to you meeting your needs with an accusation of being selfish? A lot of clients that come to me are scared of this, that their mate or their parents or their kids or someone in their life will say, "Oh, you're so selfish nowadays. Like, you've really become a selfish person." And the response to this is to own it, right? Say, "Yeah, you're right. Thank you so much. I've really been working on that." And then open up a needs discussion with that person, right? Give them permission to meet their needs and model what that can look like for them. Here's just a few facts about needs to get us started. Every single one of us has needs. We cannot avoid it. If you are a human, you have needs. And if you think that you're avoiding them, they're coming out in weird ways in your life, and they're getting met in waves that can even be destructive to your life. So knowing what they are and being constructive about meeting them is very important. When our needs aren't met, it is natural for us to feel stressed, worried, frustrated, or hurt, of course. So if you're experiencing any of those things, that's a good kind of road sign for you to look at what needs are not getting met in the situation where you feel those feelings. It can be uncomfortable to be honest about our needs. Heck yeah, it can. But you know what? You can be uncomfortable, and you can even grow your ability to be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's a skill. So that skill can be learned, and I would argue is one of the most important how to be human skills to learn so that you can live the life that you want. Many people can get stuck in a cycle, consciously or unconsciously, where they're frustrated that their needs aren't getting met or ashamed that they have needs. We kind of touched on that before. If you're in that place, it's totally normal. We are all dependent on others. Our needs are a part of our humanity. We live, especially here in America, in a very individualistic society. It values the individual. But as humans, we're actually herd creatures, and we need each other, and we need to depend on each other. And depending on another person is not a weakness, it is a strength. So kind of the next point, others are dependent on us. And this means that everyone in your life wants something from you. They're trying to get their needs met too. And so being aware of this and not taking it personal, and in the relationships where you're committed and loving, doing your best to help that other person meet their needs. Our needs are directly related to our evolution as humans. Absolutely. Because needs are core to humans surviving and thriving, we have a moral responsibility not only to meet our own needs, but to help others meet their needs. Hell to the yes. Needs are core to the human experience, so it is good to have a strategy about how to identify them, meet them, and communicate about them, which is all what we're talking about in this presentation. And if you're interested in this topic, then I encourage you to go to my website and download my do-it-yourself coaching course about needs so that you can have the coursework to go deeper inside of yourself and actually do this investigation. So just take a minute to do some personal reflection and see where you're at. Remember, accurate self-assessment is really important, and self-honesty is one of the greatest skills you can cultivate. So how well do you know what your needs are on a scale of 1 to 10? What level of responsibility do you take for getting your needs met? From 10% to 100%, or if you're lower than 10, then you just write in a number there. And how good are you at getting your needs met? How effective are you about making requests in your relationship? How effective are you about building a life, whether that is work or friendships, that gets your needs met. Okay, so now our journey begins. And these are the areas we're going to look at. We're going to look at how to sort of do a self-audit or a self-investigation to discover your needs and what needs are. So at first, we're just going to mention this. Most people are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy. This is just saying that if you don't have shelter, if you don't have food, if your basic physiological needs aren't met, it's impossible for you to work on some of those more, higher needs around how you experience love or spirituality. So just recognizing this, and I think this is important to recognize in our culture, because we have a tendency to look down on people who are who maybe aren't living the same life that we are, and we don't realize that they're doing their freaking best to meet their needs at wherever they are on this pyramid. And if you are hustling so hard in that lower level of the pyramid, no wonder you are not able to get to the upper levels of the pyramid, and there can be really compassion built for self and other in that realization. So the first thing I like to encourage clients to do if we're doing a needs audit is to look at your personality type. You can take the Myers-Briggs, you can take the DISC assessment, whichever one you want to do. But knowing sort of just how you're built and how this meat package that you're in for your lifetime likes to operate, right, is sort of important, because the way that you communicate with people and the way that you ask for what you want, it's all going to relate back to these kind of core parts of who you are. So I highly recommend that. And again, if you download my course, that's all a part of it. So just take a minute to kind of think about your personality. Do you have particular needs of your personality? I am a driver and a supporter. And so for me, it's really important that things are efficient, that everybody's on the same team, that we all know what we're doing, and that we're all supporting each other. We're talking about our feelings, versus somebody who was a promoter who their main needs would be what's fun about this situation, or an analyzer, which is my husband, which is like the data about the information or the situation, right? So the next thing that we look at is, what kind of brain do you have? It used to be sort of a theory that there was neurotypicals and then there was people who were not, right, who didn't fit in. And that's no longer the way we think. We think about neurodiversity not necessarily as a problem, but as a different mind and a different way of thinking. I have both ADHD and high functioning autism. And so those are very specific ways that my brain likes to work in the world. And knowing that about myself, I can set my life up and my habits and my routines and my work in a way that supports those parts of myself rather than works against them. So just kind of taking a minute to think about what your neuro needs are, or making a note to self to do that investigation and discover what they are. So next we talk about sort of mind, body, spirit needs. I like to think of this as a three-legged stool, because if you only have two of any of those legs, you're gonna fall down. So all of these are really important to knowing your needs and living your fullest self and your expression of self. A lot of people like to separate these things, and they don't think that taking care of their body or exercising every day has any impact on their mental health or their self-confidence. And it's just, nothing could be further than the truth, right? We are nuanced, interconnected beings, and we need to identify the needs of the body. We need to identify the needs of the mind and identify the needs of the spirit, and actively seek out ways to meet those needs so that we can feel fulfilled. So taking a moment just to maybe label one need of your mind, one need of your body, and one need of your spirit. For me, one need of my mind is I have to think about things and learn new things. When I don't, I just don't feel very excited about life. I also need witty humor in my life. Some needs of my body. I need exercise, pretty hardcore exercise. I have a pretty fast overthinking mind, and so exercising my body helps bring that into alignment and calm it down a little bit. Needs of my spirit. I need sort of magic in life, and I'm a pretty practical person above all else. And so this is something I have to intentionally create, but I find that if I don't create magic and find magic in the world, I have a tendency to get bored. This is a slide that I added recently to this presentation. When I used to do this with groups, we didn't talk about this. But I think right now we are living in a time that doesn't really work for humans. It is not good for humans to be as engaged with technology as they are. It is not healthy for humans to have access to the level of news that they have. Of course, work-life balance has become so crazy in our culture, and the expectations of work are crazy. And then the relationship with those who believe differently than you, with safety for yourself and your loved ones, your relationship with corruption that exists, and how do you regard that in your life? These are things that it's good to look at what your needs are and make sure that you're designing a life, or I would say refraining from being a automatic robot, right? And giving into sort of these things. Defining the rules for yourself is what is important here. So for me, I'm a highly anxious person, so I have to put some pretty secure boundaries on my news limits in order to show up every day and be the optimistic, hopeful person that I want to be. So core needs are like the meat, right? I mean, we've been talking about like the potatoes and vegetables, but like the core needs are the meat of who you are. Every person has maybe 3 to 5 core needs. And these are the things that run our lives. If we're not constructively meeting these needs, they will get met in a destructive way in our life. So an example for me is that I have a need for intensity. I don't know why I have this need, right? This is just the way I'm built. So I can consciously meet that need usually by doing mountaineering or backpacking. Sometimes playing games can be an intense experience for me, competition. But if I don't create these, then I have a tendency to create some really bad things in my life and intense experiences that are not healthy. And I won't go into it here, but you can certainly go to my website and read my personal story if you are interested in more information. So this is kind of how you're going to discover that. And this is all in the coursework if you download it from my website, kind of looking at your significant events for, the first third, the middle third, and the most recent third of your life. I'm 43, so this is how I divided my life. And looking at both the positive and the negative experiences, because you're going to find sort of a thread between them, and these can let you know what your core needs are. What are your core needs? Okay,
I'm not sure I
so
understand.
next is stress, trauma, and healing needs. When you're experiencing stress or trauma in your life, or you're recovering and healing from an event, your needs will change. This requires you to reassess what it is that you need to feel alive and thriving. And sometimes this can be challenging and requires massive creativity. I was hit by an intoxicated driver about 8 or 9 years ago now, I guess. I was in a hospital bed for 3 months, and then I was in a wheelchair. Let me tell you about the creativity that was required for me to get my needs met from a hospital bed for 3 months. It was crazy. I had to get very creative. I had to enroll support and really invite some silliness into my life in order to get my needs met during that time. Then we have love, sex, and relationship needs. Everybody has heard of love languages. If you haven't, just Google it. It's very important to know what your love language is and what the love language is of the people around you. Physical intimacy, of course, is important. This includes frequency, arousal styles, types of sex and sex play, and then emotional intimacy, that communication, honesty, and vulnerability. If you're in a relationship and you're not talking about your needs and you don't have a clear communication with your partner around your needs, I just don't know. I don't know how you're going to have a successful marriage or a successful partnership. This is what relationship is trying to meet each other's needs, right? My husband and I have a partnership. I'm doing everything in my power to help him meet his needs, and he's doing everything in his power to help me meet mine, and we're meeting our own, and we never make each other wrong for the needs that we have. It's an important piece of a relationship, and the communication piece is really important. And the course that I wrote goes deeper into the communication piece so that you can learn some skills there. As I mentioned, no need is wrong. Needs are not good or bad or right or wrong. They are naturally arising. There are, of course, effective and ineffective ways to meet our needs, and sometimes investigation is required to discover the need that is under the need. And I put a picture of an orange here because there's a great story about an orange that can illustrate this point. If I want an orange and you want an orange and we only have one orange, there's a typical way of looking at it: either win-lose, lose-win, right, which is one of us getting the orange, one of us getting nothing, or vice versa, or compromise, which is us cutting the orange in half. So those are kind of the three solutions that are put out to you in the world, the ones we all know. But there's a whole nother level of investigation and conversation when we go, hey, like, what's going on for you right now? Why do you need this orange? And you could say something like, well, I'm baking a cake and I need the rind from the orange. And I go, oh, great, I just need the inside. And then we both get 100% of our needs met instead of one of the other options. You could say, well, I feel like I'm getting a cold and I just really feel like my body needs a vitamin C. And then I could say, oh, well, actually, I have a vitamin C packet upstairs. Can I grab it for you? Right? I don't know what these situations are. We could come up with a gazillion different reasons. But the point is that if you dig a little bit deeper into your needs, you can often find a solution that meets everybody's needs. It just takes creativity. And I tell my clients all the time, you are only limited by your own creativity. Communicating our needs. First, check intention. What do I want for me? What do I want for you? What do I want for this relationship? Am I being the way that I want you to be? Am I focusing on what I appreciate about you and I want for you? Am I vibrating at a high level and am I winning in my life? If you want to be effective in your relationships, then you need to answer some questions before you have a big talk, and you need to make sure you're straight on the inside so that you can be straight on the outside, right? So for example, if what do I want for you? You ask yourself that and you're in the middle of a fight with your spouse and you're thinking like, well, I want you to grovel and I want you to feel as bad as I do. Okay, well, that's probably not a good time to talk about your needs because you're not right in the right mindset, right? That's not really what you want. That's tiny T truth, not big T truth, as I would say. So this can go like super deep, but for this presentation, we're just going to kind of slide by it. So first, check your intention. 2, ask permission. Set the stage for success by making sure that the other person is in a good space to discuss the situation. Example, I really want to feel close to you, and currently something is getting in the way of that. Is now a good time to talk about it? Remember, you don't know what's happening for the other person. They could have woke up grumpy. They could have just gotten a fight with their boss. You want to set the stage for the best possibility of success in your conversation. So making sure that the other person's ready to have it is an important piece. So 3, sharing your observation or evaluation. This is your data, not your story. And if you don't know what that means or you're interested in that more, there is a different do-it-yourself coaching course on my website all about stories that will help you investigate that. How I feel, your needs and values, and then make a clear, specific request. And then you got to hang in there and listen for their response. So an observation without evaluation would be something like, you stayed at the office late 3 times last week. A story would be like, you're always at the office, or you're acting like you don't want to come home, right? Some sort of story about that. How I feel is, I feel sad when you stay at the office late. My need is to have a partner who is home most nights of the week. Would you be willing to only work late 1 night a week? That's the clear, specific request, and then listen empathetically to their needs. Okay, so that was like such a quick run through. I can't believe we did it. Just over 25 minutes. If you're interested in talking more about needs, I offer free consultations. Always happy to meet with you. And as I've mentioned a couple times, there is the DIY course on my website that you can download. Thanks, everybody.